Before I begin this story, let me ask you one question. Do you believe that a single smile, from a complete stranger, can completely change the course of your life? If your answer is no, then I promise you that by the end of this story, you will think differently. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notifications, because the stories I share here are not just tales, they are life lessons that can transform the way you see the world. Trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. I still remember that day as if it happened yesterday, though years have passed since then. Life at that time felt heavy, suffocating even. I had been moving through my days like a ghost, not truly living but merely existing. Every morning I woke up with a weight pressing down on my chest, and every night I fell asleep feeling like I had accomplished nothing, as though my presence in this world made no difference. To be honest, I was at the edge of giving up, not in the dramatic sense of ending it all in a single act, but in the slower, quieter sense of surrendering my spirit. I was in my 20s, but life already felt like a mountain I had no strength left to climb. Bills piled up, dreams faded, relationships felt empty, and the mirror showed me someone who looked older than their years, worn out by disappointment. It was in this dark stretch of life that a simple, unexpected act of kindness, just a smile, altered my path completely. That morning was gray, both in the sky and in my heart. The city was bustling as always, but to me it was just noise. People hurried by with their coffees and their phones, their lives seemingly in motion while mine felt stuck in place. I walked aimlessly, not really heading anywhere, just trying to escape the four walls of my room which had begun to feel like a cage. I passed storefronts, heard cars honking, smelled the faint aroma of bread from a nearby bakery, but none of it reached me. My head was down, my hands buried in my pockets, my thoughts circling the same hopeless cycle. I wondered if anyone would even notice if I disappeared. Would anyone care? Would the world change even slightly without me in it? These thoughts weighed me down more than the bag slung over my shoulder. As I approached a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change, I glanced up. That's when I saw her. A stranger. Just a young woman standing across the street, holding a small paper bag from the bakery I had just passed. There was nothing particularly remarkable about her at first glance. She looked like anyone else, dressed simply, her hair tied back loosely. But then, as her eyes lifted and briefly met mine, she smiled. It wasn't a forced smile, not the polite kind we sometimes give out of habit. No, this smile was warm, genuine, full of life. It felt like it was meant just for me, even though she had no idea who I was. For a split second, it was as if the grayness around me cracked and a ray of light slipped through. That one smile carried something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope. At first, I didn't even know how to react. I froze, surprised that anyone would notice me, let alone acknowledge me with such kindness. My instinct was to look away, convinced she must have been smiling at someone else, maybe the person behind me. But when I glanced around, there was no one. It had been me. She had smiled at me. I felt a strange heat in my chest, a flicker of something long forgotten. When the light turned green, we walked toward each other, crossing paths in the middle of the street. She kept walking, still carrying that small bag, probably heading home or to work. I, however, stopped at the other side and turned my head slightly, watching her disappear into the crowd. It was just a moment, less than a minute of my life, yet it stayed with me all day. I couldn't understand why that smile mattered so much. It was such a small gesture, yet it replayed in my head like a song stuck on repeat. Each time I remembered it, I felt a little lighter. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I caught myself smiling back at the memory. It seemed ridiculous, almost childish, that one stranger's kindness could shift something so heavy in me. But the truth was undeniable, it had. That night, instead of falling into the usual pit of despair, I thought about her smile. I thought about how effortless it had been for her, and how powerful it had been for me. And in that reflection, a seed was planted in my heart. The next day, I decided to test it. I told myself, what if I tried to do the same? What if I smiled at a stranger today, just like she did for me? The idea made me nervous. I wasn't used to reaching out, not even in such a small way. But something inside me pushed forward. So, as I stood at a bus stop later that afternoon, I noticed an older man sitting on the bench beside me, looking tired. Gathering my courage, I turned slightly, caught his eye, and smiled. For a second, he seemed surprised, but then his face softened, and he smiled back. That simple exchange, no words needed, felt like magic. I realized then that kindness is a chain reaction, it starts with one person and keeps moving forward. Days turned into weeks, and I made it a small habit. Whenever I could, I smiled at strangers. Sometimes they smiled back, sometimes they didn't. But that wasn't the point. The point was that in offering kindness, I began to heal. Slowly, I started to look forward to these small interactions, these fleeting connections with the people around me. They reminded me that even in a world that often feels cold, there is still warmth if you're willing to give and receive it. One day, months later, I was walking in the same neighborhood where I had first seen her, the woman who had smiled at me. To my amazement, I saw her again. She was coming out of the same bakery, holding another paper bag. My heart raced, and without even thinking, I approached her. "Excuse me," I said, my voice trembling a little, "I don't know if you remember me, but months ago, at this crosswalk, you smiled at me. And I just want you to know, that smile changed my life." She looked at me, surprised, and then she laughed softly. "I don't remember that moment," she admitted kindly, "but I'm glad it meant something to you." And then she smiled again, just as warmly as she had before. In that moment, I realized that sometimes we don't know the impact we leave on others. A small act for us might be life-changing for someone else. From that day forward, I carried her smile like a lantern in the dark. Whenever I felt myself slipping into hopelessness, I remembered it. And whenever I saw someone else weighed down by life, I tried to be the stranger who offered them light. Over time, my life began to change in bigger ways. I rebuilt friendships, pursued dreams I had abandoned, and even started volunteering at a community shelter, where I met people who taught me that kindness truly is the strongest force we have. All of it began with a single smile. Now, years later, I look back on that chapter of my life with gratitude. What once was a period of despair has become a lesson I carry forever, that no act of kindness is too small, that even the simplest gesture can create ripples that stretch far beyond what we can see. And most importantly, that we are all connected, often in ways we don't realize, by the power of human compassion. The stranger may never know how deeply she touched my life, but because of her, I now try to be that stranger for others. Her smile didn't just save me, it gave me a new purpose. And so, if you are reading or listening to this right now, I want to tell you, never underestimate the impact you can have. Maybe your smile, your kind word, your helping hand, will be the thing that keeps someone going when they're about to give up. You may never know the difference you make, but trust me, it matters more than you think. That day, a stranger changed my life with a smile, and because of that, I believe in kindness, I believe in people, and I believe in hope again. If this story touched your heart, don't just keep it to yourself, share it with someone who needs a little light today. And if you want more powerful stories like this, make sure to subscribe right now, turn on the notifications, and join this journey of kindness and hope. Together, we can create a ripple effect that changes lives, one smile at a time.